Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. So folks, for today's episode, what we're going to be talking about is how, once again, the Lions have sent a message to the NFL. And if there's one thing we've noticed, I would say, over the last couple of years when it comes to both, Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, and other members of the Detroit Lions, is that they've gotten kind of pretty good at doing this. They've gotten pretty good at sending messages to the NFL. Sometimes, the message is not one that they say out loud publicly. Sometimes it's based upon what they do. Sometimes it's based upon how they perform, things of that nature. But, on occasion, the Lions will actually send out a message by actually saying something. And of course, when they're actually saying something, that's definitely something you have to pay attention to. Now, what exactly am I referring to? Well, let's first and foremost understand that often over the course of, the fact that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have been in charge of the Lions, they have faced constant doubts, they faced constant criticism for their unorthodox handling of the team. Yet, despite all of the outside disapproval from analysts, the Lions have shown that the process itself, the one that they use, it works. And that the methodology that they have, it shouldn't be questioned. I mean, if there's one thing that we know is that the Lions have proven without a shadow of a doubt, they know what the hell they're doing. They know how to make things work. Yet, despite the success that they've had, which I want to say this, has been overwhelming success, people still continue to view them as, a flash in the pan team. They're kind of, waiting for that other shoe to drop. And for the most part, the Lions have, again, they've refrained from actually commentating on statements of doubt, instead letting the results on the field to speak for themselves. That's just kind of how the Lions have done things. They're like, hey, you know what? We hear what people are constantly saying, but you know what? We're not going to make any commentary about that. We're rather going to say, hey, you know what? You guys can say what you want, but we're going to let our results out on the field speak for themselves. However, as I've also stated, there have been times where the Lions have obliged by actually sending a response to the doubters and the haters by actually saying something. And that actually happened here not that long ago when, there was a, media session with head coach Dan Campbell about their upcoming prospects, about the upcoming 2025 season. Now, what exactly did Dan Campbell say? What exactly was the whole point of this media session? Well, the whole point of the media session, first and foremost, was a chance for Dan Campbell to actually get a chance to talk with the media. It was the first time he'd actually had a chance to really talk with anybody since, hey, you know what? There was the draft, there was actually, the offseason, all that kind of stuff. It was kind of the first chance to talk with him with the fact that, okay, you know what, OTAs are going on, we're getting ready for training camp. Let's get a chance to hear from Dan Campbell as to what his plans are, what his expectations are for the upcoming, off-season scheduling as far as, the summer, getting ready for the actual preseason, and then for the regular season. And during this media session, there were a couple of things that were specifically said. Now, what exactly was the first thing that was talked about? Well, the first thing that was talked about means we're going to have to revisit the schedule. Now, I've talked about the schedule in the past. I've done live streams on it. I've also done videos on it. And if there's one thing I can tell you with unequivocal certainty, is that many people still view that the Lions are going to have a problem with their upcoming schedule. Why? Because it's one of the toughest schedules in the NFL, and a lot of people think that because it's a tough schedule, they're not going to be able to maintain the success that they have in 2025 that they've had in the past couple of seasons, particularly in 2024 and in 2023. And the reason why they view this is because of the fact that the Lions are going to be facing 11 teams from the previous season that made the playoffs. Or they're going to be in 11 games against previous playoff teams. Because let's understand something here. The Lions are playing at least 4 games against 2 teams that made it to the playoffs last year. Those 2 teams being the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. Now, all I'm trying to say here is that between that and all these other teams that the Lions are getting set to play, and the fact that, some of them are on the road, they're going to be outside, and there's all these different things that are different for the Lions, there are a lot of people that think that somehow the Lions are not up to the challenge of being successful and winning a high number of games. And Dan Campbell was kind of talked about this. It wasn't a question that was directly asked, at least not until a little bit later, but the point of the matter is that Dan Campbell was kind of asked about it. He was asked about it in the fact of, hey, you know what? You got this tough schedule. You have a shortened OTA period. Training camp's going to be a lot sooner. You're not going to have as much time because you also have the Hall of Fame game coming up. And Campbell addressed these concerns by saying this specifically. I'm going to read it right here. Campbell said this. He said, I love the schedule we have this year, because this is the type of schedule that builds you for the postseason. Like, man, you better be on it. And we're going to get tested early and often and all year long. And it's freaking awesome. It's really how you want it. So we'll be ready to go when the time is right. Okay. Let's understand something first and foremost. The message that is subtly kind of laced and mixed in within that statement from Campbell is, simply put, it is a 3-word phrase. And it's what I'd like to call, bring it on. Campbell is a smart individual. As contrary to what a lot of people want to say about him, he is not an imbecile. He is not an idiot. He is very smart. He is very astute. He is very aware of what is going on around him. He just doesn't always talk about it because, well, half the time it doesn't need to be talked about. And the other half of the time, he doesn't feel that it needs to be talked about, even if, it should be talked about. But the point of the matter is that Campbell is stating within that statement to the NFL, bring it on. Because what is Campbell recognizing? Campbell recognizes that the NFL gave the schedule to the Lions because it's a test. It's a challenge. The NFL wants to see if the Lions can take adversity and trial squarely on the chin and come out on top. Which, I'm going to say this right now, I don't know why they would want to see that because, well, the Lions have already been doing that for quite a while the last couple of years. Because as much as everybody wants to make about the fact that, this is a really, really difficult schedule, they have all these playoff teams, they got a lot of teams that were really successful the previous year, it's like, okay, but what did you think 2024 was? 2024 wasn't a damn walk in the park. Because what people aren't keeping in mind is that, okay, yeah, you know what? The Lions have 11 games in the 2025 season that they're going to be playing against playoff teams. Okay, yeah, that's a lot of games. But when you take a look at the 2024 season, coming into that season, the Lions had 8 games that were against playoff teams the previous year. And that's from 2023. However, let's think about this. By the time they had finished playing in 2024 and played 8 games against teams that were going back to the playoffs for 2024, that was including an extra team that wasn't there the previous year or was there the previous year. What am I trying to say here? Well, if you go back and you take a look at 2024, there were several teams that the Lions had to play that had been in the playoffs the previous year. And by the time that they had gotten done with the 2024 season, there was a team that had made the playoffs the previous year that was going back to the playoffs. What team am I referring to? I'm referring to the Minnesota Vikings. Because in 2023, the Minnesota Vikings did not make it to the playoffs. They missed it. But in 2024, all of a sudden with Sam Darnold and company, they come roaring right back. But then on the other hand, in 2023, the 49ers had made the playoffs, but then they fell off a damn cliff. So it's like, for everybody that wants to talk about the fact that, oh, well, you know what, this is a really difficult schedule for the Lions. It's going to be hard for them to try and maintain success. Okay, who in the hell are you trying to kid? The Lions had a difficult schedule last year. They had to deal with a hell of a lot of competition from their own division, number one. They literally started out the gate from 2024 against two playoff teams, against the Rams and the Bucks. And then let's think about this. Of the teams in 2024 that, came into the season as playoff teams from 2023, the Lions were actually 6-2 against those teams. The only two teams that they lost against that were previous playoff opponents from 2023 going into 2024 was the Bucks and the Bills. But yet, when you consider the fact that they also beat the Minnesota Vikings twice, even though they weren't a playoff team the previous year, you might as well include that all the way up to 8-2. And then let's also consider the fact how many damn primetime games the Lions had previously. They had an absolute crap ton of primetime games. And again, Dan Campbell and the Lions have had one of the best primetime records over the last, 2-3 years? Whenever the Lions are put under the bright lights and they're put in primetime games, they always find a way to win. So it's like, wait a minute here. Last year they played against a whole bunch of playoff teams, did pretty damn well. Last year they had a whole lot of primetime games, did pretty damn well. But yet, somehow all anybody's wanting to focus on for the 2025 season is, there's just a lot of games that they got to go up against these playoff teams. But yet, let's think about this here. Most of those teams that they're going up against, either last year or at some point during the last couple of years, they've already beaten. The only exceptions really to those rules would be the fact that, they didn't beat the Bengals back in 2021 or 2022, whatever that was, which, let's remember something, they were still rebuilding their team at that point. They didn't beat the Ravens. That was probably the worst loss that we've had in quite a while because we got our ass absolutely handed to us. And on top of that, we also have not played the Steelers really in the last couple of years. The last time we played the Steelers was in 2021, again, when we were rebuilding. And, that's right, that was the time that we actually got our first game that wasn't a loss because that was a tie. So, other than that, most of the other teams that we've played that have been in the playoffs, we've already played them or we've already beaten them. We've beaten the Chiefs, we've beaten the Packers, we've beaten the Vikings. I mean, for crying out loud, the Lions have had a lot of experience of playing against some of these other teams and actually beating them. The only teams that we really haven't had a whole lot of experience, squarely playing against would be teams like I said, the Ravens, we've only played once. We played the Eagles twice over the last couple of years. Yeah, we lost both times, but the second time that we played them, we nearly beat them. So it's like, hey, you know what? I'm not as worried about the fact that we're playing against all these playoff teams because apart from, realistically the Ravens, when we were actually a good team and on our way up, we really haven't had our ass handed to us all that much. The Ravens are the only team, really, that have actually squarely handed our ass to us. Everyone's going to want to say, well, what about the Commanders? Okay, you want to talk about the Commanders? Let's put this in fair context here. The Lions were playing against the Commanders with a hodgepodge defense that literally was being assembled after being through a mash unit grinder. Let's talk about that game as if the team is completely healthy or mostly healthy rather than playing them at the very end of the year. And then let's actually have a conversation. Other than the Ravens are the only team that we really haven't had a really good showing against. Even though we lost badly against the Ravens, other teams that we lost to, such as playoff teams, we didn't really lose that bad, all things considered. We still put up a pretty decent showing. Now, some players might have played bad, but overall the team still did pretty damn well, all things considered. So what Dan Campbell is saying here with this quote, this statement is like, listen, I understand exactly what the schedule is. The schedule is an opportunity for us to get ready for the postseason, and he loves it. He's not looking at it as a problem. He's not looking at it as like, oh man, woe is us. He's like, no, it's an opportunity. Bring it the hell on. So the way I look at it is exactly the way that Dan Campbell looks at it. Because for me, it's like, hey, this is an opportunity. And he's looking at what the NFL gave him, and he's like, listen, you guys might think that we might not be able to handle it, and you guys might think, oh, well, you know what? We just don't think you're good enough, and being all arrogant about it. And Campbell's like, no, I'm not going to look at it that way. I don't view this as a punishment. I view this as an opportunity for us to be ready for the postseason. Because let's just call for what it is. If the Lions can go through the gauntlet of teams, which I believe they can and will, I'm not saying they're going to win all of them, but they should be able to win a lot of them. I believe that they will be able to come out the other side and have almost more experience to be ready for the postseason than any other team in the NFL. They will be more battle tested for the postseason than virtually any other team, because it's like, listen, they're playing really against all the top contenders. And it's like, hey, you know what? To be that battle tested, to go into the postseason to face all the rigors of that, Campbell's not going to shy away from that. He's going to look at the schedule and be like, oh yeah, bring it on, buddy. Bring it the hell on. Now, that brings me to the second part. Campbell was then asked about the outsider perception of how people view the lack of pass rush. And the fact that, you know what, you got two new coordinators in Johnny Morton, and you've also got Kelvin Shepard, and the schedule again, and he was pretty much asked about how, hey, you know what, there's all this outsider perception about how you don't have these things, or that these things are going to be a hindrance to you, and he was asked, hey, do you view this as fuel for your team? Do you view this as fuel for yourself? And again, this goes back to what I've said before about how the Lions, they don't listen to this crap, but they sure as hell hear it. And just because they don't listen does not mean they're like, oh, okay, we hear what you say, and trust me, we're going to keep that as a mental record, as a mental note for when the time comes. Because again, Campbell provided another provocative statement against the doubters in the NFL, because this is exactly what he said. He said, look, give us any nugget you need to, all right? It's all good. We'll take all. We'll take all of that. So give us every excuse and we'll use that, especially when the time is right. Again, the best way I can look at the Lions is that they're kind of like a smart time release device. It's like, hey, you know what? We will use whatever you give us, and when the time is right, when it is the right moment to use that, we will use that as adding nitro to our engine. We will find a way to make that into some form of powerful motive to be like, oh, you think we can't do something? Well, welcome to the jungle, my friend, because you're about to get your ass handed to you in more ways than one. Because again, we've seen it all throughout the entire time that Dan Campbell and, Brad Holmes, Jared Goff, and the rest of them have been with the Lions. People doubt them as far as their ability to do things. It's always happening. And pretty much what the Lions and what Campbell is saying there is that in short summation, you know what? Yeah, we'll hear every idiotic excuse that you will come up with as to why we can't do something. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use it as a perfect fuel additive to motivate ourselves to not only do it, but to completely destroy those who dared utter the stupidity in the first place. Because again, what Campbell is saying unequivocally here is, bring it on. Pretty much what I got from the majority of that presser from that media session was Campbell pretty much telling the NFL, hey, bring it on, buddy. We're ready for you. And the best way I'm looking at it is that every lame brain excuse that people want to have and that everybody wants to say about them, the Lions are going to store it. They're going to store it like a little bank, a little time release device, and they're going to be like, okay, we're just going to keep writing all this up. We're going to have it as our nice little bulletin board material, and then when the time is right, they're going to use it as nitro to add to an already never-ceasing running hot motor that they have to then bulldoze and mud stomp you back to the damn medieval times. So yes, by all means, NFL, by all means, you doubters, you haters, you morons who have not learned your lesson, keep adding more motivation, more fuel to the Lions because, oh yeah, you know what? That worked so well in the past. Because think about it. Every time that people have said the Lions can't do something or that they're unable to do something, what has that inevitably led to? Oh, that's inevitably led to the Lions pretty much saying, oh, yeah, we can do it. And not only can we do it, we're going to make you look silly for actually saying that we couldn't do it in the first place. And then you're going to have all these analysts like, dude, I never thought the Lions could do this. I couldn't see how the Lions were going to be able to do this. That's especially been true over the last 2 years. But it also happened in 2021 when people thought, oh, there's no way the Lions can beat the spread the way they could. It happened in 2022 when people thought, oh, there's no way the Lions can come back from a 1-6 start. And then, oh, that's right, they finished the year 8-3 for a total of 9-8 and almost made the playoffs. And just to add a cherry on top, they decided to say, oh, the Packers, they're trying to get into the playoffs. We're going to go into Lambeau Field and we're going to shut that nonsense down and send, Aaron Rodgers running with his tail between his legs. The best way I can look at this is that between what Campbell said in the beginning and what Campbell said at the middle is pretty much that, hey, you know what? We don't give a damn what you think about us. We don't give a damn about how tough the schedule is. Pretty much, we're not going to whine, we're not going to moan, we're not going to complain about all the stuff that you've given us. What we're going to do is we're going to look at that and we're going to see it for what it is, and then we're going to give you an evil Joker smile and laugh and just be like, bring it on, buddy. Bring it the hell on. Because trust us, when you come to play us, you're going to be in for an absolute world of hurt. And that's why I'm saying the Lions, Dan Campbell specifically, sent a very provocative message to the arrogant NFL and said, listen, we understand what you're doing, but you don't understand what you're signing up for. You want to give us a trial? You want to give us a challenge? That's what we live on. That's what we thrive on. And we're going to use that to the best of our ability and to our advantage to absolutely freaking steamroll you and make you regret trying to place us in a position that you think was going to break us. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take that trial and adversity and we're going to make ourselves stronger from it. And then we're going to take that and we're going to take it out on everybody you put in our way. Just saying. But anyway, folks, I just wanted to put this episode together. Not really too, in-depth, so to speak, but it definitely is one that should get your attention because, again, Dan Campbell is the general. And if the general is saying this, he's already put the message out to his captains, and the captains have put it out to the sergeants. They've already got their marching orders. And let me tell you something. It's probably ingrained and burned into every person's psyche and mind. Oh, yeah. We're getting ready for war. And we're not looking at it like a long season where it's going to make us weary and tired. Oh no, we are energized and we are ready to kick ass and take some names. Again, like Campbell has said before, one ass cheek and 3 toes. Here we come. But anyway, folks, that's my message. Hope you all enjoyed the content. And with that, I'm going to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things, like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage y'all, please, make sure you hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Also want to encourage y'all, please, to make sure that you share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you possibly can. And with that, I hope you all enjoyed the content. Hope it gave you a smile. Hope you all thought it was something that was actually worthwhile. That's exactly what I try to do with every piece of content that I push out. Also hope everyone has something in their life that makes them happy, makes them smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.